here today at the Mastering Lab in Ojai, California, with special guests Steven Slate, legendary engineer and producer Ken Caillat, and mastering engineer Eric Boulanger. We'll have an in-depth discussion about recording and this innovative new console.
There's questions that probably just keep getting asked. What are the most frequent questions regarding the Raven, the VBC, your limiter, the newer stuff you've got coming out?
We get a lot of questions. You know, I think with the Raven, some of the questions are, what's it going to be like going from touching physical pieces to touching virtual pieces? And the answer is that it's way less different than people would assume. You're mixing a track, let's say, you know, if you've got a song, you've got some drums, you know, your faders are a very important part of the mixing process, but they're also an extremely simple function. What's cool about the virtual faders is you can do so many things on them that you can't do on analog faders. Like I can, you know, grab one fader and then drag my hand into another fader and have both controlled. I can have different fader ranges and custom ranges, so if I want to, you know.
What is the thing that you're able to zoom in and really focus on the intensity?
It's called fine fader mode, and you even have, you know, basically you touch fine fader mode and it only allows the fader to move in specific increments that you choose.
When I first touched it, I was like, okay, I almost thought this is similar to what I was thinking it was going to do. But then you're like, oh, no, click this in. And it was literally, it locked it in.
Yeah.
And yeah, it was very tight fitted.
Right,
and
you can control that too. So you can, we're going to have a little slider that will control how tight it is.
The velocity of it?
Well, yeah, well, it's actually the increment. So like right now, it defaults to 1/10 of a dB.
Well, that's one of the cool things that, you know, the evolution of technology allows for, are creative choices like that maybe they were or weren't possible prior to it, but they were something that didn't occur to you as often because they weren't clearly labeled options that were in front of you. And ideally, people, you know, can embrace the technology and not just say, all right, well, these are new things we can do, but they're good creative things we can add in that maybe we wouldn't have thought to try before.
Yeah, I mean, the Raven was created by audio engineers. You know, this was not created by a bunch of suits or a bunch of guys in a laboratory. This was created by audio engineers who work on records. And we sat there and we're like, what stuff can we do that will enhance our workflow, that will make, you know, the creation process better, faster, stronger, and cheaper too. I mean, even back when I was, you know, again, working at studios and everyone was working with real gear, there was just as many people who didn't know what the hell they were doing back then. But now, because so many more people now have a studio, you just hear more of it. You know, but like they say, the cream always rises to the top, and I've heard some amazing sounding stuff. I have an email that all my customers can email me their mixes. You know, I've gotten stuff from bedroom studio producers that sounds as good as anything I've heard on the radio. And that's a really cool thing. You know, I get access to a lot of that, you know, and it's pretty amazing what people can do with modern tools. You know, when I was, you know, young, I had a cassette 4-track. Well, I wanted to make Rumors, but I made crap. Talk about a whole album. I mean, it's like you can't just listen to one of those songs. That is a complete picture of a time, of a culture, of a sound. You know,
we did a similar thing in Tusk, where we decided after Rumors was a bright album. We decided on Tusk we wanted to make a dark album. So the only story we were telling is more featuring bottom end, and it still told a story, a different kind of story.
The thing I didn't get though is you've been able to marry in Rumors. I was telling someone this like 4 or 5 days ago. Really murky darkness with a lot of top end. So you're instantly thinking it's a dark, but it's more of a vibe thing that's creating this darkness, because there's a lot of top end on that record. It's really top end heavy. In a good way, it's not harsh, but that's one thing I noticed, that there's a way to create emotion and sound, and you can do it today. It just seems like it's harder. Is you listen to the Rumors specifically, Tusk too, but you know, you were talking about the grade of tape and how you were bouncing the machines, and that was giving more transients and stuff. Obviously for Rumors was a little different vibe, but there was so much of a vibe in the room as well that was causing it to be moody and dark. But it's, I don't know how to explain, but it's still so bright. It was just an interesting combination. I think that's why it was so important.
And the weird thing about that whole thing is that the traffic lady at the Sausalito record plant convinced me to run double 24 on cutting the basics. I've never done it before, and never did it after. And so one time I did it, I just said, yeah, okay, because she said, we have 2 24 tracks and I'll give you a really good deal on the tape. So we cut. It's a stupid thing to do, cutting the basics, but it turns out with Fleetwood Mac that we got, like the chain was almost entirely cut as in the first pass. That was the original chain, and as you heard in Dreams, when we worked on Dreams, that work vocal was the vocal. So we got a lot of magic in the first pass of that, and fortunately, had she not convinced me to do that, we wouldn't have had these safeties that we lugged around to 12 studios, and finally we were able to put all the overdubs back on. Again, why there's so many incredible things that happen that and making rumors that.
That's the book.
Yeah, I wrote this book actually thinking I'm always being asked to tell stories about rumors, and I actually thought this would be one way not to have to keep talking about it. But and I wrote this book giving the reader, letting them have the opportunity to be a fly on the wall and sit there and see what a big time record was like, to be in the studio with these 5 creative geniuses writing their own songs. And I just wanted the world to know that before I forgot it, before it was gone. We did a lot of tricks that we didn't even know were possible. Had we been smarter, we would have found out that we couldn't have pulled them off, so we pulled them off anyhow.
Was that a known tactic back then, running the 2 machines? I mean, it was...
No, there was no sync, there was no lockout.
Right, it was just...
In the next year or so, people started running double 24 with a control track.
Right.
But we didn't do that. So we had to print A440 on the head of the songs, and then play A440 back into the guitar tuner to tune it, because the tape machines were always running at different speeds. So we were wondering why. Well, we're at A440 to tune the piano.
Wow.
That's really sick.
I was crazy stuff. It was just like
slick.
How are we going to solve this? Well, let's do this. Okay.
Great. Some sort of limitation, though, is good. It does force you to rethink your methodology of working and your workflow. And I mean, that's what, with digital technology, I mean, workflow has become such an important thing. And I mean, I know it always has, because since we've been recording music, it has been with technology, but workflow now just continues to take a front seat. And in doing that, it forces you or allows you to make different choices, whether you embrace it or not.
What's going to be interesting for surround mixers is the Raven has full 7.1 monitoring, and of course, if you're working in the workstation, you can use the actual surround patterns on the different DAWs. I mean, the actual surround patterns. You can just reach out and touch them, and do cool, crazy pans and all that kind of stuff with your fingers. So.
Sure beats any mechanical mixer where you've got like the joystick trying to...
Yeah, no more joystick. You can actually just
I want it there.
Yeah. It's really neat. What's
really
your opinion about listening to music in 5.1 and 7.1? And why do you think that hasn't really caught on beyond like productions like Cirque du Soleil or something like that?
I can tell you. Surround didn't catch on because of the format. You had to buy a DVD audio player, or you had to buy a SACD player. Nothing was compatible with anything. The format was the problem. You don't mix a record in surround so that things are flying around your head like it's a Disney cartoon.
Right.
You make it for music. The benefit to a surround mix, which will make any stereo sound absolutely broken after you listen to surround, is you have 4 more speakers of headroom. Mm-hmm. So, think of every song that's out there. It starts with a vocal and maybe a piano, and by the time you're at the last chorus, it's built up to an orchestra, a choir, everything. And, for mastering, it's always the challenge of fitting the size 14 foot in a size 8 shoe by the time you get there. And for stereo, it's really difficult. But when you have a surround mix, you can have that lush, really big opening, have that intro sound amazing, and then when that gospel choir needs to come in, you've got rear channels.
We did a 5.1 recording of Frank Sinatra, and I purposely put his voice in the center speaker. So if you stood in the center speaker, you could, and actually turned off the other speakers, you could hear Frank Sinatra's solo. Where else could you solo Frank Sinatra's voice?
Exactly.
And I let it come through as like a little secret. If you're really clever, here's a thing that I'm giving you, music people. Listen to Frank Sinatra solo, because it was flawless.
Well, the Raven takes the workflow that we're used to with an analog console, which is, you know, moving faders and touching gear and touching knobs, and it just puts it on a touchscreen. You know, it's not really that, you know, well, crazy of a concept.
Right.
We're not reinventing the wheel. We're just, you know, the modern studio is no longer, you know, tape machines and analog consoles. The modern studio is Pro Tools. It's a computer. It's on a screen. And of course, Pro Tools does what, you know, a smart thing, whereas they recreate a mixer on the screen to you know, give engineers an interface that they're used to. And, you know, it's a pretty simple concept to me. I'm actually, the biggest surprise for us when we launched it was that no one had thought of it first.
I want to give a big thanks to the Mastering Lab, Ken Caillat and Steven Slate. For more information on the Mastering Lab, visit themasteringlab.com. Ken's book, Making Rumors, you can get it at Guitar Center, and The Raven at gcpro.com. Have a good day. Was I too handsy?
I liked it.